It's about a lesbian truck driver who
love it. I love it. Who just travels the world, just eats pussy.
That joke isn't funny anymore. Available on Amazon and everywhere.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Lou Perez podcast. I'm your host, Lou Perez, and I am so happy to be joined by an old friend of mine. He's a filmmaker, documentary guy. He's a social media mogul, Calvin Tran. Calvin, thank you so much, brother.
Hey, I go by Tran Hoang Calvin now, actually.
Is that? Yeah, I was gonna ask you what's that about?
Well, there's a fashion designer named Calvin Tran, so you can't Google me. Yeah, you can't. It's hard to Google me because of that. Like I've lived this my entire life, so
can
I made a conscious effort to.
Can I still call you Calvin? What the
I tried. It's going to confuse the podcast listeners. They're going to be hearing Calvin. They're going to Google me after the podcast, and it'll just be crazy. So,
well, I don't want to dead name you, Tran.
It's really about the SEO, but yeah, you could also call it dead naming. I don't know if people change genders for SEO value, but I'm just doing this for SEO.
I mean, the smart ones do. The smart ones certainly do. Okay.
That's a good career move.
So if I slip and call you Calvin, please bear with me. We've known each other for how many years have we known each other?
I met you at a conference back in college. Like it was my sophomore year. That was 2016.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Back when you were living in LA still.
Yeah, was I? Or was I? I think I may have just moved back. Yeah, and I realized that because I had asked my wife when was it that we left LA, because everything happening with the fires and that sort of thing. But you did an interesting thing. So you went to NYU and then you went back home. Where are you still operating and doing all your stuff? Where are you exactly?
Why don't we just go through my backstory, shall we? Let's just grew up here in Michigan, Grand Rapids area. I don't know if a lot of people know Grand Rapids. It's kind of a mid-sized city. Obviously it's second sister to like Lansing and Detroit, or Ann Arbor even, but Ann Arbor is kind of a suburb of Detroit at this point in stage. I think some people take offense to that. Grand Rapids, nice. I call it kind of like the Petri dish of America's like politics in a sense, because like every national issue, we had our own small version of it in some kind of flashpoint moments. Like kind of like in every city, small town USA type of feeling. I got to go to NYU for film, which was really a transformative experience. I lived in New York from like 2014 all the way through to the pandemic. I had a lot of great experiences. And then when the pandemic hit, I had a job at ABC News that had just wrapped that February. And I was hanging around. I had a film in my school's film festival. And that was like that week where they started shutting down stuff. I remember de Blasio was like, go eat Chinese food. I was like, all right.
And everyone came up to you and you're like, I'm not Chinese. What the fuck? Yeah, what the fuck?
You know how many Chinese people have mistaken me as Chinese? On the subway, I'll be like just sitting there and a guy will come up to me and start talking Chinese to me. I'm like, fuck.
How does that feel? Is that racist? I don't know what
it's weird. I don't know. Like, I think I look Vietnamese. My Jewish friend called me ambiguously Asian. I don't know. People don't recognize Vietnamese, I guess. So I have to like somehow find a way to communicate that I'm not Chinese. And I'm just like, I look at them like, sorry, I'm not Chinese. And then I just go back to like looking at my phone and they give up on me. There's a look of disappointment that is really interesting. I don't know. Have you ever experienced that? I don't know. Like people mistake you for Italian. You look Italian, but you're Hispanic for sure, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I've gotten...
But no one goes around talking Italian in New York, even just like, I can't understand you in English.
Yeah, like I've gotten not necessarily like mistaken, but people like I could pass for a lot of different like ethnicities, like anything basically Mediterranean.
I bet your agent loved that. Yeah.
Greek, like Italian, Greek. I can kind of do all that. But I'm still imagining what that Chinese person wanted from you, and then you just ruined their day. They're like, oh my God, I thought I was going to be saved today, but then this white man
You know, he probably needed my help. He needed my help at this darkest hour. He needed to get somewhere, and I just, you know, now he didn't get that job interview, and now he's homeless or something. You know, I feel terrible.
So after so after your job at ABC, you moved back to Michigan.
Yeah, I came back to Michigan, where I've been in a long-term relationship since high school with my wife, now wife Nicole. So I just like, you know what, time to pack it up. Had a good run. I don't think I want to be in New York City for this. So I came back. I remember I had a flight, but I didn't believe my flight would actually stay connected, because he was like, there was some kind of order where like my friend and I didn't know if we could get out of the state even. So the night before, like, we got a trip out to Newark, and I got a car rental and I drove back home instead of taking my flight. That was like 2 days later than that, because I didn't think de Blasio was going to be cool. Came back here, and I was like, you know what? I have to like take my own production company seriously. I had formalized a production company in 2018. I had made a Amazon Prime documentary series about blockchain technology with that. And, you know, just kind of like a fledgling little operation. It didn't really have much going for it. That's why I took the job at ABC to learn a lot more. And I came back, like, all right, time just knuckle in, because there's no other thing going on right now. There's no way. And so I built Nodehaus, my production company. I call it an impact studio, though, because we've really become kind of a broader team for all things impact. So, you know, we make TikToks, obviously, for like fire. We've done consulting for TikToks for Reason, and we've helped them out quite a lot. I was like, it's kind of a shame now TikTok's about to go away, and it's like, damn, like, we put a lot of effort into these guys. But yeah, all right, we put in vertical video.
Yeah, before we talk about that, I think it's really cool, you know, your ability to, you know, go back home to Michigan and create your own studio there, your own business, and to operate where, you know, in a way you are competing with the big guys, because you don't have the overhead, and you're working with, you know, sometimes kind of like niche businesses or companies, like you said, like Fire, like Reason. And I think that's really cool about that we could do that now, especially with all the stuff, you know, with all the stuff happening. I mean, even just like, you know, everything happening in California with the fires. I mean, the devastation there. I know so many actors and comedians and people who are in, you know, that industry who have lost everything. And, you know, it's sort of like that whole world needs to be built up again, if it's ever going to be built up again. And, you know, I wonder if people are looking at it as like, oh, you know, here's, you know, kind of an opportunity to, you know, start somewhere else, you know?
You know, it's a real shame that this is kind of the pathway for a lot of people in my generation now. It's like moving to a higher productive city where your income could be better, your career could be a lot stronger, is no longer like the path, in a sense. My friend Nolan wrote a book, Arbitrary Lines, kind of detailing a lot of this, about the cost of cities, and like, you know, how it's become dysfunctional in our city planning, and how we can't build enough housing for people. Mm-hmm. And you know, in the past, that was the path to success. Like, you're living in the middle of Michigan, and your path to a successful career in this particular field is to go to a city where there's enough demand for your skill to make it worthwhile. You know, I mean, you can do community theater in Michigan, and there's some good places for it, but there might not just be enough demand for it, right? Or you know, the demand isn't there enough, but there are a lot of people who want to do it, so it's very competitive in that sense. And of course, it's also like you're doing community theater in Michigan, and you're not on Broadway where you want to be, right? So, you know, that would be the path, and it makes sense. You want to go to a high productive town where you can meet people and get a bigger network, and also compete with the best. You want to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? And now it's like, you know, I appreciate the praise of being like, yeah, I did come back to Michigan, and I'm making a successful company here. But it's like, part of that was necessity, because it was very expensive in New York. At one point, I had like double digits in my bank account left over. Like, I had like $80, and I was like, oh shit, this is not good. You know, because I was getting priced out. I mean, it was very expensive. I lived in like my living room. I was sharing my apartment with two other guys. I'm in my living room in the Lower East Side, and you know, I was just like, man, this is not what you want when you couldn't survive this way when you're 22, 23 years old. But it's like, ultimately, like, you gotta have a pathway to to get the lifestyle that you want, and it just wasn't kind of panning out, and it's just getting more and more expensive and dysfunctional. And so yeah, like I had to move out of necessity. But did I want to? Not necessarily. I love New York. I would love to be back there. I would love it if New York City got a lot of its stuff together. I'm actually pretty glad about the congestion pricing on one level, but you know, the MTA is kind of really screwed up, and you know, there's just a lot of dysfunction. Of course, the housing market's unbelievable, and you know, yeah, I would love to be there because then you can build a real network. You can build, you know, one thing about Michigan that I'll say is the culture here is very Midwestern. And that kind of means that, you know, you don't really stand up for yourself because it kind of feels like you're putting yourself above others. We have a humility about us, right? We have, everybody says, you know, Midwesterners are very nice and humble. And that's true, but it's an enforced humility in a sense because everybody's humble. If you stand up and you kind of advocate for yourself, you look selfish compared to everybody else. So you kind of just like culturally, you don't do that, and no one does that. And then, you know, there are tons of artists who might live among you, but then no one speaks to each other. No one knows about each other. So that's kind of the thing. That's the very big difference between like living here, where, you know, it's just harder to meet people and collaborate versus like living in New York or LA, where, you know, that's the culture. I mean, in LA, it's kind of to a fault. I kind of got annoyed with LA. I felt like everybody had a headshot in the back pocket, and it was like, I don't want to hang out there necessarily, but you know, like that's part of how creative and energetic that city is for the kind of work that I would love to be doing as well. But, you know, I'm making it work here in Grand Rapids. You know, yeah, we siphon a lot of money from the coasts because that's where my whole network was based out of, you know, organizations, nonprofits, companies. And, you know, so I don't really compete locally necessarily, but I'd like to start competing locally. I could make a play.
Make a lot of watch, ladies and gentlemen, when bodies start falling, who's going to be behind it? Not Calvin. Tran.
Tran.
He's going to be behind it. I got to say, as far as standing up for yourself, that Chinese person on the subway didn't believe you were. They didn't believe that you were not Chinese, and they didn't believe you were from the Midwest because you stood up for yourself.
Yeah. You got it.
It's tough.
It's tough in New York. You know that.
Yeah.
You know that.
Well, I think I think the pandemic in particular revealed a lot about, you know, the systems that we have in place. Relationships, and also like what's most important too about relationships. And like I have I've talked about my story a lot, like everything that I went through you know, during that time. But like something recent, my wife and I went out to dinner at a restaurant that's been around for like a couple of years, and people had recommended it. It's sort of like a local spot. It's like a 20-minute drive from where we are, just kind of in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey, right? And it was one of the best meals that I've had, I could say, like in New Jersey in so long. And I'm such an old man in that anytime like someone does something well or does something where they obviously care about every single thing that they do, I reach out to them like the next day and thank them. I said, thank you. And I probably sounded like an 80-year-old man. It was on Facebook. I messaged them directly and said, thank you so much. My wife and I had such a wonderful time. We're going to be back, and, you know, et cetera. And, you know, the restaurant was absolutely fantastic. And one of the write-ups that they were covered in like in a magazine that was about like kind of like food and fine dining and all that. Like the question was, you know, why here? Why would you open this, you know, kind of, they're not a Michelin star restaurant, not yet, but like, why would you open something like this, you know, here? And, you know, the way that I sort of looked at it is like, well, like if you go to Italy, right, you're going to go and you're going to be willing to go to these like, you know, these small towns that, you know, are outside of Rome, that are outside of Milan, that are outside all of these big cities. You're going to go to these small towns where they have the most incredible food ever, and you're going to dine there. And it's sort of like, there's no reason why that can't be a thing here too, where it's like, yeah, we're going to drive an hour into Jersey from the city or from wherever we are, and we're going to have a fantastic meal. And we're going to support, you know, the local industry there, not just because they're local, but because what they're doing is so fantastic. And I think, you know, the pandemic showed a lot of stuff as far as, you know, what's most important, you know, when you're talking about, with you in particular, the thought of you having a baby and a wife living in that living room, the Lower East Side, with roommates. Not saying you were going to, go there. It's important to be free of that, to be able to raise your family in a place where you want to be, and to be able to do what you do, and to potentially make a play for, the Midwest, where, I figure what Chicago is probably a big market, right? That's most.
Yeah. I mean, to that credit, yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing about Grand Rapids is it's a big enough city where I think like there's no reason we couldn't be like a Portland, Oregon, or like a Savannah, Georgia, where like they have creative people. They have like a solid creative, industry. They actually export. A lot of people from Savannah end up in a lot of different places, right? So there's no reason we can't. I kind of chalk it up to, I think, it's our Midwestern culture that kind of keeps us from being as collaborative as we really could be. But also like, yeah, if I can make an impact on it, I will. It's I mean, that to your credit about like messaging, like a boomer messaging this restaurant, like that's like what's going to hold you back? Like, you don't want to look like a cringy like boomer. Like, is that holding you back from giving a nice compliment and being part of the community and actually just like letting people know that you appreciate them?
Yeah.
Like that's a big breaking past these kind of social media norms and just being able to like say, you know what, I'm going to be a pillar of my community in any way, in the small ways and the big ways. That's like a calling. There's no problem with that. I don't think of myself as a pillar of my community. I'm just kind of like trying to make ends meet, but I'm doing my thing. I'm trying to make my thing happen.
Well, one thing I'd say is, the stuff that you, in particular, that you were making for FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, and you were kind of like right there at the launch when FIRE started, putting stuff out on TikTok, smartly, because hey, it was a younger audience there and they wanted to reach them. You've worked with, you have like a nice stable of really solid performers who, they could easily be, actors. I'm like, oh yeah, I could see them doing stuff in LA or New York and all that. And it's cool seeing that, kind of rotating cast of actors that have come through, on that. I don't know necessarily if you know the answer to this, but did those performers, have they seen kind of like success or notoriety come out, from their success on the TikToks? Or
my company is almost entirely people from my high school that I hired to join me along this path that I'm taking them on. It's like the first thing, 2020, it was just me in my attic apartment that I moved back into. Like I just found a nice $400 place in downtown. It was terrible insulation. I mean, it was cold in the winter, hot as hell in the summer. And I was just like schlepping it, like trying to make motion graphics for Pacific Legal Foundation, getting a few projects here and there, made stuff for like Learn Liberty, and just making things happen. And then when we got enough work, I was like, all right, I'll hire a friend of mine because, I knew that they were trying to get into the film industry, but we're in the pandemic. So what the hell else is he going to do? He's working at a KFC right now. So brought in Jacob. Jacob is the guy who's in those TikToks as well with me, the taller. The white guy. He's the white
guy. He's not Chinese. He's not Chinese.
No, not Chinese. I talked to him in Chinese. He didn't respond, so I guess he's not Chinese. So brought him along all the way early back then, but trained him to do motion graphics and editing and stuff that we were doing. And then as we kept growing, I just kind of hired some more people. My close friend Tristan was also in that group, right? Taught him editing and post-production, and I've just been like through sheer force of will, been trying to build this company. Partially because the film education out here is poor. I don't want to get into controversy, but I'm going to just say I don't trust a lot of the film schools here.
I don't want to ruffle any feathers being from the Midwest, but I got to tell you guys.
I mean, it's just, look, man. I'm saying a lot of stuff right now. Right now, we're lobbying this industry is lobbying for tax breaks for the film industry in Michigan, and it's like. You know me, I'm a libertarian, so I'm already kind of like, all right, come on, like that's not exactly what I'd want. Obviously it'll benefit me in some way maybe, but like I don't stand up and cheer for that. But it's one of those things where like if you don't stand up and cheer for that, it's kind of been a kind of cultural thing against that. I was like, come on, man, aren't you trying to support our industry? And so talking bad about anybody in this kind of small circle is kind of not what people like. So, but I just really don't think the colleges around here are doing a great job. And to the point that they're taking so much money from young people and aiding them with $20,000, $40,000, $80,000 of debt. I mean, that's unethical. To me, it's almost like a scam. The quality of education that they leave that school with, and I've seen it firsthand because I have to hire people, and I'm trying to like bring people in to like do some work, and there's just like small things like, wow, that was really bad. Like that was not professional. Like if you graduated school and you paid $80,000, which is a down payment on a really good house, like come on, like you should be able to do something better than what you've done. So it just through sheer force of will, I have to train these guys as strongly as I can, and try to make something happen. So yeah, all the people you see on TikTok, they're my high school buddies. Jenna was she played the bad witch, the evil witch in our high school production of Wizard of Oz.
Is that the actress? There's one actress, brunette with like arm like tattoos. Like she had a good
that's Jenna.
Yeah, she's really good. Yeah,
she's fantastic. And she does local theater when she can. But yeah, it's just like just bring anybody that I know who has charisma and a heartbeat, and bring them in and see what we can do with them. And we have a good stable of people right now. We got a good team. Yeah, we got a good team.
Yeah, on the education front, I mean, I graduated NYU in 2004, and I wasn't
Go Violets,
baby. I wasn't a film major. I was in Gallatin, but
individualized studies. What the hell?
Yeah, man. I was an individual. I individualized throughout my life.
That's isn't that making your own degree? Like what is Gallatin?
Yeah. You make your own degree, and part of it was one of the reasons why I went to NYU is because I got a scholarship. But also I ended up transferring to Gallatin. And what was, attractive about that was when I was interviewing for other schools like Brown University, they have a similar like individualized track that you could go. So that was sort of implanted in my head. And then seeing that there was a chance to do that at NYU, I went and I went that route. But, all this is to say, in the, 21 years since I've graduated and I've been working in production, I've never looked at, somebody's education unless it was sort of like someone reaching out to me and saying, I graduated at NYU. I know that you graduated at NYU. I'd love to talk to you about, like that's the only time. What I'm most interested in is not necessarily even the previous work that somebody's done, especially if they're new, but just basics of, are they, entrepreneurial in that, are they reaching out to me? Are they willing to make, are they willing to make time? Are they showing up to work early on time? How are they on set? Do they know? And here's a really important thing. Do you know how to shut the fuck up?
Yeah.
Knowing how to shut the fuck up.
Are they coachable really?
Yeah.
Coachable and absolutely.
And I wonder, because I have and I know some kids who recently graduated from like a film program, and when you hear how much money they spent, I was sort of looking at it like, they could have I would have charged a quarter of that. They could have been my apprentice for a year, a year or two. Like give me 20 grand, mom and dad, and I'll have your kid working on sets and in the editing bay and a part of the scripting process, and give them like a whole hands-on training. And, they'll walk out of it with a resume where they could actually say, oh yeah, I was, best boy on this, on these projects and et cetera, coming out of it all, instead of in massive debt and trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do, they come out of it with, like a body of work and a resume.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say like, the school that matters when you're talking about like theoretical physics and, the computer science, maybe, like there are definitely like schools and professions where, okay, I want to make sure that you've gone to a school where they have some kind of standards and you wouldn't be able to get this degree unless you really did something good, like doctors or whatnot. The film industry, even though I went to, what is like probably the number 1 or 2 or 3 school in the nation for the film industry, like, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was, did a lot of good stuff. I also saw a lot of lacking parts to it. I saw a lot of things that, because the industry changes so much, they're always going to have some kind of like blind spots, but also like it's been changing so much that like there were a lot of blind spots because a lot of the professors like, they're from the 80s or 90s and things have changed quite dramatically to, in the year of 2016. So it was like I could see blind spots, and if you, God forbid, if you graduated that school with the kind of debt that you could, because I had a full tuition scholarship, thank God. That probably is because I was Asian. You know, I don't know if they must took me for Chinese, but I think they gave me the Asian. But
I think Vietnamese, man. Yeah, brother.
I think my portfolio was really good, but I think there might have been. I don't know what the decision making was, but you know, I got a scholarship, but I still got some debt because I lived on campus for a year. That was already itself was 18 grand. That was 18 grand. Like, holy crap. And just like that debt alone was kind of like, all right, if I had paid more than 20 grand in debt, then maybe that school might not have been worth it. There are some other avenues you could take, you know, considering the loss of time that you could just be getting a job and getting paid for the time that you work, and all that stuff. Like, you know, there's some other alternatives. But yeah, then I look at schools that aren't NYU, which is, you know, at the top. And then you got to think like, well, how much is that worth? Because you could be spending those 4 years doing something for your career and getting more knowledge versus, you know, going to a lecture hall where I don't think they teach you the basics. So for one instance, I'm just going to rag on the local school here. My buddies went there. And after they graduated, I was like trying to just kind of get a sense of what they knew, because they felt like they didn't really have any options in the industry. And it was like, they didn't know how a camera really worked. I mean, you graduate a film degree and you don't really understand like what the 5 elements of camera exposure are. It's like, wow, like, all right, well, you should get a refund, or there should be a class action lawsuit against the school or something, because that's like, I don't know, it's unfathomable, right? Like, I don't know, there's some equivalent for like medical industry or rocket science that must be insane for that kind of community to hear if you were able to graduate a school with a degree in that kind of field and not know something basic like that. So yeah, just that kind of quality. Like, yeah, I'd rather just find ways to give people apprenticeships or internships or something like that, and you know, just teach them what I need, like, because I have needs as an employer. Like, I need people to be able to do this thing. Here's what I would want you to know. Let's just give you that teaching program, and now you're off to the races, instead of like, oh, we're going to hop around a lot of different things that might be useful, and then you're going to find out after 4 years you didn't want to do this one job. You didn't want to go in editing. You wanted to be in camera, but shucks for you. You spent the last 4 years in editing classes, and I don't know, there's like a lot of wasted time and not a lot of great principles being taught. You know, it's a shame.
Yeah. On TikTok, and we'll get into the, you know, the future of TikTok. But one of the things I wanted to highlight is a series that you do. I believe it's is it on the Nodehaus channel, or is it your own channel?
Which one are you talking about?
Is it away messages?
Oh, the voicemail messages?
Voicemail messages, yeah. So if
that's
I were
on my personal. Tran Hoang Tran Calvin. Actually, I dropped the Quang in that one because it was just easier to do Tran.
You're making it harder, man. You Mr. SEO. Actually, that should be your name, Tran SEO.
Well, it's cool. My initials in this way is THC. I always thought that was kind of cool. But go on.
Okay. So the voice messaging. If I'm trying to describe, each one kind of has a theme to it. And
they are elaborate voicemail box recordings that you would get if you called me and I didn't pick up. And they actually are my phones, like, messaging. So if you were to call me right now, you would get the football one I've left on. What basically you hear it. It starts with like a football, like a referee whistle. He says timeout. And then you hear like a drum line, and you hear like cheering in the background, and then suddenly you're in the huddle. You're hearing the quarterback say, you know, someone go left, someone go right, and then it addresses you, the guy listening, and you leave a voicemail with your name and number. All right, break. And then they snap the ball. You hear the last drive of the play, and he goes all the way to the end zone, and everybody's cheering, and then you hear the beep, and you have to record your voicemail. So it's a fun experience. I think that was like a 40-second recording. So,
and that's great. You've done so many. Yeah. So all of those, they have, you know, obviously like the voice acting, they have music, they have like Foley, like some of it is, I guess, like, you know, digital sort of like pre-made, you know, sounds, but then others, like you guys there were like fucking coconut shells, you know, doing it. And it's great because what you just described, the audio component of it, calling your phone and hearing that is great. But then seeing it actually be produced kind of in real time on TikTok, I think is excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. It's supposed to be an experience. I've wanted to do this for a long time. I grew up like when I was like 18, 17 years old. Like I recorded my first one, and I think it was like a little rhyme to it. It was like a rhyme. I thought it was like a little unexplored little bit where you could do something and have a little fun with it. And then I was like, you know what? I've had this idea because this is a long pull. All the way back in high school, I remember SNL. It would put up an episode on after the Saturday that it aired, and for some reason the audio engineer did not activate the microphone of the guy who announces like who's performing or whatnot. And so it was just the saxophone music. Like you could kind of hear it in the background with like the microphone that hears the audience cheering. You could kind of hear the guy talking, but it was basically just the saxophone. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. So I ripped that audio immediately. I recorded it. Like I got the audio of the saxophone just wailing. And I saved that file on my hard drive. And then, years later, this is like 2022, I found that. I was like, oh my God. So the first voicemail I did was just like, it was like an SNL intro, but for the voicemail. And, that was just fun. And it like kind of went viral. I was like, oh shit, okay. Let's do another one. So we did like a Western one, where it's like, you're in a shoot off. And I was like, let's just keep going. Let's just keep having fun. So yeah, then we did the football one. We've done like my sister is a chef. And so I made one for her that was like a French restaurant. So like, someone orders, the food critic comes in and they have to make the voicemail for them. So you're hearing a bunch of like chopping and cooking sounds and whatnot. So yeah, just kind of kept going with it. And I think it's really fun. But then I stopped because it was like Christmas time and I got out of habit. I broke the habit and I didn't do it anymore. And then TikTok's now getting banned, so I don't know if I'll do it again, but like I do want to do more. I would have liked to do something that involved like actual people or organizations. So the Detroit Lions, I tagged them in the football one because I was like, I'm a big fan of Detroit Lions. Always have been. I'm not a bandwagon fan. I was there, back when they were losing badly.
Barry Sanders days, you were there.
Matthew Stafford. I was a Stafford guy. And we. I tagged them in a comment and they replied back like, oh shit. So I mentioned like, could we do a voicemail like with like the Lions organization some way? And they're like, well, we'll think about it. Well, I'll talk to my uppers. And it didn't go through, but I was like, man, that could be really cool if we got a football team, whether it's like a local college or something like that, or maybe, go down to Notre Dame or U of M or something like that and record like a locker room speech, with the actual like coach or the actual players. And then you could make that available for download for everyone who's a fan of the school, and then people could use that as their own, right?
Well, I mean, just the prospect of those guys, like putting that team, getting the pro team in the locker room, and the coach is doing his thing, and as the camera goes around, like each guy kind of has like, something that they're supposed to do, whether it's like a xylophone or something. So with TikTok, looks like it's going away. Are these videos available on any other platforms? Well, obviously you have them backed up, right?
Yeah, I've thrown them on Instagram and YouTube Shorts.
Okay.
So we'll see which one lives. I don't know. TikTok is so unique in its own ways that I don't know. There's no one going to replace it. I would hope that Elon Musk revives Vine because Twitter bought Vine, so I don't know why they don't revive it. It's such a great brand, but. We'll see. We'll see where that goes.
Are people going to go back to 6 seconds? I don't know.
I mean, it just has to be the Vine logo. It's just the brand, make it 3 minutes or whatever. But come on, I mean, it's Vine. It's an American. It's made in America. Come on,
It's as American as Vine. Yeah,
as American as Vine. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what's so funny with with the TikTok stuff? It's kind of like, obviously China has no respect whatsoever for intellectual property and all that. It's like you couldn't get a couple of just American tech guys to be like, we could do that. We'll just take we'll just do exactly what they're doing, except, maybe we'll, keep out some of the spies or just keep the spies,
I think it's the secret sauce. I mean, number one, someone could make some of the basic UI copies, right? The biggest thing that Instagram and YouTube don't have is the fact that you tap the logo on your phone and it opens up directly to the For You page. Instagram right now goes to a feed, and the feed is not as like seamless as TikTok. And if you actually want to go to the real side, you have to have clicked into it, which, I don't know, like that's just more tabs to get to there, to get to the actual video reels side of things. So it's not like that alone is already enough to say it's not going to replace TikTok in that way. And then the secret sauce is the suggestion algorithm. The
Duck sauce. The secret sauce is duck sauce.
Yeah.
I think that's what the Chinese use. No, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
It's the stuff that makes it so addictive, that the suggestion feed. And so, like, whether or not, come on, man, there's got to be some Americans who can do this. I mean, we have Vegas after all. We have guys who can make things addicting. But that's what they don't have. That's what Instagram doesn't have. I don't feel the same rush of dopamine as I do on TikTok. So yeah, until we get that figured out, man, we're lost, man. America's behind in this Cold War.
As far as the dopamine goes, do you attribute that to the platform itself, or the fact that you made so much content on that platform? Because I was putting stuff on TikTok for a little while. A couple of things went kind of viral, and I got thousands of followers. But then once I got kind of spooked about the spyware and all that, and I got it off my phone, I would check in every now and then, but on my desktop. So I wasn't as active on the platform because I wasn't making stuff for it, So what do you attribute that to? Did you really enjoy it, or were you like kind of getting high in your own supply in a certain?
No, I enjoyed TikTok, but I made sure that the algorithm was focused on what I wanted, which was a lot of like creative inspo, tutorials, and whatnot. But at some point, I did burn out on it. I mean, the biggest thing, the issue. As much as I enjoy social media, as much as I actually have a career in it, I know that it's kind of insidious. I mean, all these social media platforms are very much about the absence of pleasure. The whole thing, like when you watch a movie, a great movie, you walk out of the theater and you're still living with it. It fills your chest. You feel fulfilled. You feel like filled up. But when you watch a TikTok, once you're done with it, you have an absence of pleasure and you need to watch the next one. That's what it's built around. So like, as much as I enjoy it and I have tried to build the algorithm that I have in my suggestion feed around what I actually want to watch, I just think that it's a little too difficult. It's a little too insidious. It's really, I try to make sure my media diet stays intact, and it is just for the time that I actually want to use it and that I can't control myself, because it's built around you not controlling yourself. Yeah. That's what I have to learn. I have to know that stuff so I can make content for that platform though too. So, try to make you always worried about the next free speech video that we're making. You gotta be on the ball.
Yeah. I mean, it is quite an undertaking, when Fire, made the jump to creating content on a platform, where, China does not have free speech, and what sucks about, the one thing that sucks about TikTok, or that I found, is like, if you're on YouTube and you have like 100,000 subscribers, after a while, you kind of have an idea of how many views your video is going to get, depending on, it's like 100,000. Okay. You're going to get at least 10,000 views, just say, right. But on TikTok, it's like, you could have 100,000 followers, and then one video will get 1,000 views, and then another one could blow up and get like 500,000, So,
the algorithm is not built around, the platform's not built around following. When you hit follow, you're going to slightly get a more likely chance that you're going to get more of that account's stuff in your feed, but it really doesn't mean anything. The whole algorithm is built around retention. So when we graphed out like 300 videos that we had access to, we graphed out the retention versus the performance of the video. It was a pretty clear correlation that if you got past about 40% of the video, if your average person got past 40% of that video and kept watching, then you were in the playoffs. You had a chance to go viral. And then boom, the more likely that the more that they watched, the more likely that it was that you went, 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures, or whatnot. It's just retention. It's like this sense of like, did this kind of really short video really keep people? And if it did, then we got to suggest to more people. And it had nothing to do with followers. And that's like that was the weird thing about it, man. That was a weird thing. And what's interesting about it being owned by China is that a lot of our, like, I'd say like 7 out of 8 of our videos that we did for Fire that commented on China's censorship, all did really well. All did really well. Really? Yeah, 7 out of 8 of them did really well. I think the eighth one that I'm remembering, it only had like 10,000 views, so it didn't do as well as the ones that we had like 300,000. But no, like China, like TikTok is banned in China, so they don't really care about it doing messaging stuff. I think the real issue is that it's about access to data about people, and I don't, and also, we don't know. We just don't know what the extent of what they can do is. I don't think they've pressed any buttons in terms of propagandizing people necessarily, but because I think the biggest thing throughout its entire tenure, it was under political pressure under the Trump administration to not be too woke. And then under the Biden administration, it was to not, offend the sensibilities of the people who wanted to control the narrative on, like, say, COVID or whatnot, or now Israel, Palestine. Like, it was, the TikTok has always been afraid of pissing off the American leadership because it's been so skeptical. The government leadership has been like so skeptical of TikTok. And so you'll see stuff like, if you had anything to say about Israel, Palestine, they were already like, oh shit, we got to like make sure this doesn't see the light of day, basically. And that was under the behest of the US government, honestly, or like, those kind of things. I don't think it had anything to do with China's like actual control of it. Mm-hmm. Who knows if they would have, if they had more, if they had time, if they wanted to, if they got critical mass. But everything that I saw was like, yeah, the moment you touch Israel, Palestine, the video would be like kind of underperforming than what you think it would based on the retention. And then there's a little tag that said like, oh, this is a thing that has a lot of fact checkers or something like that. And again, why? Because that was mainly at the behest of like American leaders who were like trying to say it was either too woke or not woke enough. Like, it was just ridiculous.
Currently, if I go on TikTok, one of the notifications is that there's money in my account that hasn't transferred over because you have to like do it like kind of manually, and you can't do it over via desktop. You have to do it over the app. So I would have to get like a burner phone. I'd have to get a phone that has only some of my dick pics, and then
some of the dick pics, but none of the military secrets that we all know you're hiding, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny because all of my military secrets I wrote on my dick. Okay. So, but yeah, I would have to like download it and then, initiate the payout. And I don't know how much money's in there. Like, I haven't had it for probably like, 2 or 3 years. So there could be, $12 in there that, it's not in my pocket. But what do you think I should do? Should I do it? Is it worth it?
You got to figure out how much money is in there, man. I mean, look, if at the end of the year and you're like, oh man, I wish I had money for Christmas gifts, wouldn't you want the $100? Right?
My kids are starving. And I'm like,
I can't tell you what to do, Lou, but I'm just saying, if you had at the end of the year, the snow's coming down, Christmas season's upon you, and you're like, man, I really wish I could have this $100. Wouldn't you have wanted to take that out? I mean, come on,
Yeah.
And you don't have military secrets on that phone, so you should be fine. Like, there's no risk to the American people. So,
yeah, I just have whatever boring shit I have in there. So it's something that I know you're a dad now, and congratulations. And I'm a dad, and something my wife and I, we talk about. We made a conscious decision not to like post, pictures and videos of them online.
Same here. That's why we don't share any information about our child.
Yeah. And the thing is, when when you look at a lot of people who are really successful, like especially on like Instagram, they are pimping out their kids, not in the terrible way, but they are using their kids to get, for branding, for sponsorships, for all this stuff. And it was just, there've been times where I'm like, man, this picture of my two boys is just beyond adorable. And I know if I put that out there, then, daddy can mix, I'm like, kids are us. I don't know. So they would want to be a part of this,
No, that's why you make a dedicated streaming service about your kids and then force your family to pay a subscription fee. So that way you only share to the people that matter, and yet they still have to pay you, That's how you make it work. Come on.
Whoa. I got to do that. Yeah, my parents don't know. My parents don't know how that my parents won't be able to operate that stuff, and they're probably the only ones that would pay for it.
No, there's an app that we use called Family Album. It's Korean, or it's Japanese. It's Japanese, so it's not Chinese.
Yeah, don't get them mixed up, bro. Okay, you're being a little racist now. Okay, the Vietnamese guy's like, I can't tell these fucking.
All right, no, we have a Korean app. Nicole, my wife and I have a Korean app, but this family album is Japanese. And it's called Family Album, and yeah, you give access to only the family members that you want to have access to it, and you just share all your photos and videos there. So for me, that gets that urge to like share a really nice photo or video of our child to our family without me having to like, oh man, I got to post to Facebook where I have 900 followers or friends, right? Like I don't need to share it to them. I really don't, and I'll just share it to my family in an app so that way they can access it. And it's not through like 5 different group chats with 5 different people. And I don't remember who saw what. Right. So yeah, it's just like an app. So that's what I do. That's our strategy.
Yeah. I have my friend Rob, he's like 60. I think, how old's Rob? Rob's like 61 and he has all daughters. And one of the bits of advice that he gave me, he's just like, take a lot of pictures. Like just take a lot of pictures. And it's so true. Like one of the cool things about like the iPhone is that every now and then it'll put together these kind of like montages and be like, here are the portraits from June of last year, and it's a really nice kind of like it's a nice form of coercion where it's like, remember this. Remember that time is passing and your children are growing up and they look so different now and they're different, they're
that's your AI assistant telling you how futile your life is,
Yeah, but it's so funny because it's like when it comes to technology, we hear so much about all the dystopian stuff, but here's like, remember you are human. Remember,
Right. Yeah. The Family Album app does the same thing. They actually. Sorry, I feel like I'm selling them to you. They do a lot of stuff like that.
Hey, if they want to sponsor, look, I love Koreans. I love Koreans the most. I love them more than the Chinese. I love that. Then I love the Japanese the most. I love the Japanese more than the Koreans. So it's like for me, it's Japanese, Koreans, Vietnamese, and then the Chinese. All right, I got to be real.
Right. You know where your money is. You know what side of the bread your bread is buttered on.
Right.
But no, they do the same thing. It's like it's really quite amazing actually to see that all there. And then you just scroll back. You just scroll back to like when they were newborns. Like, oh my god, it's just unbelievable. But I mean, my question for you is like, what was the biggest change for you when you became a parent? Because for me, it was like you realize a lot of different priorities in your life suddenly shift. Like suddenly. It's about time. Like time's a shortage, or it's like the just like I used to be okay with going onto the subway at 23 years old and it kind of being a little scummy and dangerous. But now it's like I would not accept that. I do not accept the air of danger that existed around me when I was young.
Yeah. I think for me, two of the big changes were sleep. So a lack of sleep, and I when I had kids, I finally realized just how important sleep is and how little of it they've given me. And then the other one is kind of disorder. So I used to be, I used to have a little bit of like OCD, especially when I was in college. Like my desk was arranged a certain way, and if you moved my stapler, I would be very upset with you and all this. And if you're looking at my room that I'm in now, my office, look at that bookshelf. It's coming down. So I've been able to, I guess, accept a certain amount of, disorder, entropy, in chaos, in the world. One of the things that I have to work on, is my lack of patience. So that's something that's been an ongoing thing with kids because they don't know what they're doing. And you do have to tell them 10 times to stop doing the same thing or to do the same thing. But I think I've kind of unlocked an achievement recently where my oldest son is learning how to ice skate. And I gotta say, I've been an excellent supportive father when it comes to the ice skating. Cause I know how to skate. I used to play hockey as a kid. And I've just been like immensely proud of him for being brave and going out on the ice and doing something that is very difficult to do, and trying to let him know, like, it's all step by step. One day you're going to be skating, and it's going to be awesome. Don't get frustrated, And so I think there I'm like, oh, here I am. I'm actually being a good dad here. So
absolutely. Now, when you said skating, I was like, oh, is that fairy stuff? What the hell? And then you said hockey. I'm like, oh, okay. That makes sense.
Listen, man, former figure skater. Those guys are insane. I mean,
They're
what they could do that. How about yourself? What's so not wanting to have your son or daughter next to people shooting up on the subway? I could see that. I get it.
It's sudden change for me. I was really okay with it. I had lived for those moments, actually. I was shooting a documentary, and right before my subject was coming into town off the train, I was like, you know what? I got to get some lunch. So I go to my favorite Chinese restaurant that's now closed in Lower East Side. And I go in, I'm waiting in line. The guy in front of me starts doing the thing. He does the lean.
Oh, yeah.
Oh shit. And then he falls, and now he's ODing. And so I have to help the Chinese store owner who, doesn't speak great English. And
he doesn't speak.
Him.
He doesn't speak heroin addict. Yeah.
Well, yeah. He's calling 911, but he needs me to.
Yeah.
Hey, boss. No, he gives me the phone because he can't really communicate to the 911 operator, and so I'm helping flag down the ambulance and whatnot, and that to me was that was a wild experience to help this guy who's ODing, and I don't know if the guy survived, but
right.
It was that, man, I'm young, I'm having experiences, I wanted to be a Vice news reporter for so long, actually. I wanted to go into conflict areas and do that kind of stuff. But after having a kid, it's no, I see my priorities now. I don't need to do that. I have to be here for my kid now. And, that's the most fulfilling thing,
Yeah.
So that's the big one. In terms of one, I don't know. I'm much more, I'm a fan of the Montessori kind of mindset, which is basically comes down to let your kid just do whatever and don't try to make them based around your reactions too much. That's really what it comes down to. You have to let them do a lot and learn a lot. As long as you provide a safe place for them, it's a lot less stress on you because you don't have to be parroting them, and you just let them figure shit out. And you know what, and what really came down to is how you'll react today is going to determine how they act tomorrow. So if you if they have a meltdown and you try to react in a certain way, you could easily be rewarding a next meltdown, right? So you have to really remember that whatever you're doing right now is going to have a long-term impact on how they respond tomorrow. So you just gotta stay calm and remember that even though they're crying and screaming at a certain pitch that's really annoying to your ear, it doesn't really mean that they're in pain. The most pain that you've ever felt in your life is breaking an arm or something like that. And even then, if you screamed a blood curdling scream, okay, that was worth it for the broken arm. But this kid is screaming for a toy. You have to remember that their pain that they're experiencing right now is not actually serious, and that you don't have to put up with it. You don't have to give into it. It's just a sound. It's just them trying to make you do something. And if you reward that, they're going to do it again. So it's honestly, that makes it a lot less pressure on me as a parent, and just say all right, I just gotta stay in the zone and be referee here and step back a little bit, let them play, let them be who they are, and not get too caught up in it.
Yeah. So I wonder how much of my annoyances with my kids, it's a lot of it is, I wonder what percentage is a me problem, because say for example, I have very sensitive hearing, so there are pitches when they're uttered or screamed by my kids that physically hurt me.
It's an evolutionary thing for them to do that too. It's biology trying to make you respond. It's I'm so there are times where I would bring them to my parents, and my parents they've lost some hearing over the years, and I've realized I'm the problem here, because my parents don't mind that they're screaming and jumping around and making noise. I'm the asshole with the sensitive hearing. So if I remove myself from the room, if I wasn't here right now, it would be totally fine. They're not misbehaving. It's just they're it's whatever dad whistle they're blowing is just fucking giving me a headache. And when you show up, they interpret that kind of as playing. So it's if you just being there and paying attention to them, it just rewards them more in a sense. So like if it's normal play, that's great. But if it's like you have to respond to everything they do, then like it's like actually a reward for them. And they also like rely on your reactions a lot more in the sense that like, you know, like my baby like fell on the ground and looks to us, the parents, to like gauge the response. And if we gasp and we're like, oh, that's what scares the child. That's when they like actually start crying and like, but if you just like look at them and just like plain face, don't react, they get back up. It's that kind of weird level of like, they're looking to you for a reaction for a lot of reasons, like just to learn why they should be doing what they should be doing. And if you just try to like focus on staying calm, then, you know, they can adjust themselves a lot better than I think we give a lot of credit for. And then it takes a lot of stress off of you. Like, just leave, just stay, just let them in a room where it's padded and, you know, the corners aren't sharp, and let them bang pots around. And you can like have a nice hour to yourself, honestly, until they come out with a book and want you to read to them. But, you know, it's just reading, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're in Michigan. How's the weather there now?
Oh, awful. We had a blizzard these last few days. I'd probably say total. I mean, it like came and melted a little bit, came back in a fury. Probably have 6 inches right now. Yeah. I got a snowblower right before the snow came though, so I'm ready. I'm a homeowner now. That's a big thing. That's a big difference from being that's a big change from having a kid. You want to be a homeowner. I think most people want to be a homeowner if you have a kid.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. Like if I was still living in New York City, I'd be the guy with the snowblower. Fuck it, bring it on the subway. Who's messing with that guy? Who's shooting up heroin next to a guy with a snowblower on the sub? I saw a crazy short video. A guy was filming on the subway, and on the platform, waiting for the train to come, was not one, not two, but 3 dudes on mopeds, and they weren't together hanging out. Like these guys probably didn't know each other. Yeah. They were separated. It was like 1, 2, and 3, and it's like, all right, man. All right, this is what's going on.
I love the city. What a great, such great characters in that world, man. I wish I could. When you go to another city in the world, you're always thinking like, man, but New York was the city. You know, it's the city. It's like the prototypical city. You know, that's what I love about the place. Yeah.
You brought up your friend Nolan. Is it Nolan Gray? Is that his name? Nolan. And Nolan writes a lot about kind of NIMBYism and YIMBYism and
city planning and how we can make our cities better. You know, good buddy of mine just got married, by the way, so congrats to him. He's gonna join us one of these days to talk about being a dad. And you know, he's part of the big fight in California to make housing affordable, primarily to like stop California's regulation regime. You know, it's unbelievable in California. I mean, like with the fires and everything, like there's a question: how will they rebuild? Well, can they rebuild?
Yeah.
Some of those houses were not conforming beforehand, and the process to get anything made is, you know, prohibitively expensive. It takes years. So yeah, like why put up with that? They may not rebuild those areas for a long time because of the red tape they put up. And it's like, yeah, so California, Nolan works at California YIMBY. He's a big part of that fight. And I, you know, that's a big issue for me. Like if I had to put my top issues, it's like criminal justice reform and housing affordability. I made a documentary about criminal justice reform. I've worked with Nolan on a lot of like videos and whatnot about housing affordability. I am on the board for Affordable Housing Michigan. You know, we're trying to create a statewide organization to also make sure housing affordability in Michigan is a priority. Because, you know, if we don't, like, we could easily end up with the problems of California in Michigan. And we don't have the great weather to show for it. You know, everybody wants to move to LA, obviously, but we don't even have we have 2/3 of the year it's cloudy, you know, according to the almanac. So you just can't. There's no reason for housing to be that expensive. But, you know, yeah, on the board for that, trying to make sure that we address our zoning issues the same way, deregulate the housing production costs, and make sure that we can. I mean, just like zoning is so insidious. I mean, zoning is a book that exists that like tells what every plot of land can and cannot do. And particularly it says what it can do. And if it's not included in the list, it's not legally allowed to do. That's how zoning works. Like, that's so Soviet. That's so Stalin-esque, you know, like that's unbelievable. And yet we have that. We have that in America. It's unbelievable.
Well,
that's a rant. That's a rant.
Well, no. Well, I've definitely heard about, I guess one of the difficulties in Detroit is people love their copper wiring, So if you put something nice up, there's a good chance someone's going to come by and go copper farming.
Detroit's coming back though. Detroit's having a renaissance right now. Actually, it grew in population for the first time in like 4 decades. We're coming back, man. We're coming back. As long as like we can rebuild the city in a way that makes more sense. I think obviously it's Motor City, so it's kind of hard to like say people shouldn't be driving so many cars around the main part of the city, but like that's going to be a big part of it. Because otherwise, you're just going to have to keep building in the suburbs, and the main part of the city is going to be more and more expensive, rather than just build dense inside the city and make sure that people can just live inside the city and not need to have a car and surface parking everywhere. It's happening. It's happening. There's transit lines are being built. Things are happening in Detroit, and even Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids is growing all right. It does have to do a lot of things to avoid the problems of California, but I think we're nipping the bud. Hopefully, and we are going to be there. We're going to fix this thing. We're going to fix Michigan.
I think you're going to be a mayor. I think you're going to be mayor of Grand Rapids.
I would hate that. Well, number one, the mayor has no power. It's actually like this council, whatever. But no, I would hate that. I don't want to be in politics. I mean, honestly, I
could see you not having any power. I could see that.
yeah. It suits me. Right? It suits me. Yeah. No, I love making movies, man. I love. I'm working on like 2 documentaries right now.
Awesome.
I'm working on a narrative film as well. We locked it, so we're going to be coloring and doing graphics and
that's
putting
great.
the soundtrack in. So
how long is it? A feature or something short?
All these are short films. So Shoot Shovel Shut Up is a film I made with the Moving Pictures Institute. It's a narrative film, and it stars Casey Simpson. He was a Nickelodeon star of Nicky, Ricky, Dicky, and Don. He was Ricky. That
might be after my time.
Well, it's interesting. I saw his episode. So he grew up. He was on an episode of Law and Order, and in the cast was Gary Lee Mahmood. Your man. He was in there. He was in that episode. He was the counselor he's the dean of the school that Casey Simpson's character went to. I was like, whoa, all the connections are happening.
Look at that. The whole world's coming together.
Yeah. So yeah, he's in my short film. It's really nice. It's about a rural family having to, they want to sell their farm because the mother has an illness and it's the 80s. The farm's not doing very well. But the son discovers an endangered bird on the property. And, when an endangered bird is on the property, that means you can't farm it, so the land becomes unusable to yourself, even because it has become protected. Like you can't disturb the area, and then you can't sell it because no one's going to buy that. So he has to decide whether or not to let the bird be known or to kill it, right? And to let no one know to save the family. So it's dark. It's kind of
no spoilers, but he should kill that bird. He should kill it and fucking eat all that evidence, man. Get out of here.
Yeah. Kill endangered birds. That's the moral of the story. And then I got 2 short documentaries on the way right now. One's about a cafe down here in Grand Rapids called Has Heart. It's a veteran-owned cafe. What they wanted to do way back when was they wanted to combine artists and designers with veterans. So that way the veteran could help tell their own story through a design. And then they could sell those designs to donate the proceeds to veteran supporting organizations. And the biggest thing was that, as a veteran, you might feel selfish if you shared your story. That's you putting yourself above your unit because now you're making it individualized to yourself. And so they have a hard time sharing their story. But it's a big part of healing. Once you can kind of turn your story into something physical, like a design, you can have control over it. So it's a very therapeutic process. And so these guys, they wanted to do that. And then they decided, we could make a coffee house,
right,
where we have that art on display and we can switch it out every month and help people kind of see the stories while getting a coffee in town. So it's a really cool cafe, really good food, really good coffee. And so we're doing a documentary about them. And then another documentary that I'm helping out on, I actually, it's a friend of mine launched it, and I was like, I got to be part of this. I got to help out. I got to make anything I can do. It's about a lesbian truck driver who
love it. I love it. Who just travels the world, just eats pussy. Right? Isn't that what it's about?
Yeah.
Please tell me that's what it's about. Yeah,
heartwarming. No, it's called Rainbow Rider. It's because she has a truck that is detailed, to be, flamboyantly rainbow. And she wanted to do this because, she knew other queer truck drivers, and then they face discrimination, and one of them commits suicide after he gets like assaulted.
Oh Jesus! Oh look, hey look, don't do that to me. Don't bring the sadness into you. I just had this great image of a hot lesbian just traveling the country, hooking up with other hot lesbians at truck stops and whatever could fit her giant rainbow truck. And then you go and you hit me with some reality. I don't like that.
As fun loving as I might appear in this podcast, I do a lot of dark stuff. I do a lot of dark. I do like tragic documentaries about sad things because I'm an impact producer. Right? They care about impact. So this trucker wants to find community more, wants to build more community. A lot of the trucking community overall has felt like this loss of community. They feel disconnected. So she goes across the country to kind of meet people and reconnect with people. And then you also find out that she has like a form of cancer. So there's also like,
oh, jeez, come on, man. Jeez. What the?
It's tearjerker.
Hold on. Then there's a fucking endangered bird, and then they gotta decide whether to kill this fucking thing.
Yeah, and then there's a veteran who's really also into.
No, man.
So you're gonna love my previous film. So I wrapped up a film. Was on the film festival circuit all of last year, and we wrapped it up. Called A Clean Slate. It's about expungement. It's about someone who, this lady named Shanielle in Milwaukee, who. She got arrested for defending herself and her daughter from her husband or baby daddy, I guess. I don't know, who was like being violent with them, and she had a restraining order against him. And he shows up. Well, she defends herself. She gets the charge because she won the fight physically. So she gets a charge, a violent charge, and tries to get that expunged. But because of a technicality in the law, she isn't eligible. She wasn't old enough at the time. Of the crime. She was 24 years old. You needed to be 21 years or younger to be eligible for an expungement. So she has this on her record forever. But by learning and trying to get her expungement, she learned how to get it and then helped other people get their expungement. So to this point, she's helped thousands of people across Milwaukee get their expungements and pardon. While she herself is not eligible for it. It's kind of.
Is it called The Expunger?
The Expunger is a superhero.
Is that what the title is?
No, it's called A Clean Slate.
Clean Slate.
It's tasteful. It's not. It's a tasteful title.
Right. Well,
so yeah, I do a lot of like sad.
Well, you got a lot. You got a lot of stuff going on. I think this is sort of, kind of proves the point of you can do this stuff from a place that isn't necessarily LA or New York. You could make this stuff happen, and you're making it happen.
I mean, you have to believe it can happen because, all these years, all these decades, right? We go from film reels to digital, and everything's gotten cheaper to make films. So the question is like, how come this industry is still so unbelievably unprofitable while cost to make stuff has gone down so dramatically, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of reasons. Obviously, like this whole streaming obsession has turned audience expectations into thinking like, oh, everything should be free, right? I never have to pay for media again. So there's no revenue coming in because of that. But, ultimately, like you got to believe that you can, if you are an artist and you believe in creating something and saying something, that you can do it. You can do it wherever. Yes, it would be better if you had the right team with you. And hopefully if you move to a city that had the right team available to you, that'd be great. But if you don't, build your own team. It is cheaper to make films today than ever before, and we got to believe that we can do something with that.
And if you are looking for an impact studio, you got to check out Tran Calvin. I don't know how to say your middle name. I'm
Hoang.
Hoang. Tran Hoang Calvin. Calvin to me, and you will always be that. Calvin, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm gonna end the recording right now.
Thanks.